A very real and sudden lurch towards the prospect of a no-deal Brexit. The British Prime Minister told the UK to get ready.
The deal on the table is really not at the moment right for the UK, and now is the time for the public and for businesses to get ready for January the 1st. Because, believe me, there's going to be change either way. There'll be change whether it's a Canada-style deal or an Australia-style deal.
The comments follow high-level talks between Boris Johnson and the President of the European Commission in Brussels on Wednesday. After a 3-hour working dinner, compromises remained off the table. Negotiations, however, have resumed, with Sunday set as the new deadline for reaching a breakthrough. The UK officially left the EU on January the 31st. It's been in the transition period ever since, subject to EU rules and regulations, while it tries to reach a trade deal. Without one, the UK falls back on very basic World Trade Organization terms, often called an Australia-style deal. But what it really means is the sudden unplugging of Britain's economy from the world's largest trading bloc, and the prospect of checks and tariffs on goods going between the UK and EU. On Sunday, the new deadline. It will be exactly a year since Boris Johnson returned to Downing Street, having won a landslide in the election, largely on the promise of being able to deliver Brexit. 12 months on, and the repeated promise of a trade deal with the EU, though, is still to be honoured. And now hopes of a deal are drifting away. Seemingly irreconcilable differences on fishing quotas, business competition rules, and how the new arrangements will be enforced have dogged negotiations for months. And in a possible sign of things to come, images of tailbacks of trucks on the road to the port of Dover and the Channel Tunnel in Folkestone on Thursday. Logistics companies are reporting a surge in orders ahead of the Brexit deadline. A warning too from France that British citizens may need visas to stay in the EU longer than 3 months. The EU suggested it's ready to keep the continent's roads open to British trucks and let the UK operate flights for a period of 6 months, providing the UK does the same. But the British government's promised a hard break from the EU come what may on December the 31st. Without a willingness to compromise, it's difficult to see what avenues are left. Neave, Al Jazeera, London.
Jonathan Liss is with us now, political commentator and Deputy Director of the group British Influence. He's on Skype from London. Just as a sort of big question first, Jonathan, should it have been this difficult? I made the point at the start of this segment, 4 years since the vote, and it's all come down to the last few days.
I think it was always going to be difficult because Britain wanted something that was undeliverable. That is, to have all the benefits of EU membership without any of the responsibilities. And now it's trying to secure unprecedented access to the EU's market without being tied to any kind of EU regulatory framework, trying to secure a perfect vision of sovereignty, which doesn't exist anywhere in the world apart from North Korea, while trying to negotiate a trade deal which by definition involves some kind of pooling of sovereignty and agreeing to a shared set of rules.
So then what are the alternatives? As Boris Johnson now starts talking about the possibility of a no-deal Brexit, and then he says things like, oh, the Canada model or the Australia model, what do these things actually mean?
Well, they're euphemisms to reprogram the kind of language that people understand. They're not honest, shall we say. The Canada-style Brexit sounds great because we know that Canada is a beacon of free trade, but even that would represent a hard Brexit with a huge loss of GDP. And an Australia-style outcome is even more ridiculous because that means no deal at all. Now, it's not true for a start because Australia has some deals with the EU on side deals with trade. It's also negotiating a deal with the EU, so it doesn't like having a so-called Australia-style deal. And it's also trade between Australia and the EU accounts for 11% of Australia's exports. And it's also very far away. The gravity model of trade, whereas for the UK, 43% of our goods exports go to the EU. So obviously, the EU is much closer, it's much more important than Australia is to the EU, and EU is to Australia.
Is Britain, and I think Neave mentioned this in his report, looking at possible chaos come January 1st? You know, we keep hearing about this idea of long queues at the Dover port and the like. What's your view on the likelihood of that happening?
It's a certainty, because for the last sort of 47 years, we've been inside the EU's economic instruments, and now we're being wrenched out of them. And that's even with a deal. We're still going to leave the single market and customs union, and that is going to require new checks taking place immediately for tariffs and standards, and that's going to lead to huge tailbacks, and that's going to be massive disruption to the economy. Now, the Bank of England has estimated that the damage from a no-deal Brexit is going to be worse than the damage from COVID. And you know, the LSE has estimated an 8% reduction in GDP compared to what we would have had over the course of a few years. So this is this really serious stuff for which people have not been prepared for. And part of the reason they haven't been prepared for it is that Boris Johnson delivers these bullish statements talking about Australia and not telling people how their lives are going to be affected.
Not great, is it? Thank you, Jonathan, for your analysis on that. Jonathan Liss joining us from London.
Thanks.